Chief Whip of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, says he has been approached to take over as the parliamentary leader.
His term came to an end after the resignation of Mmusi Maimane as party leader yesterday and as parliamentary leader this morning. The term of Chief Whip is linked to that of the party leader.
In terms of the rules of the party, an interim parliamentary leader may be elected among the ranks of the DA MPs until an elective conference is held. And a meeting for this election is to take place next Tuesday. Steenhuisen says he will consider the position.
Very unfortunate turn of events, and I certainly don't think it is good for the party. And if anybody wants to portray it as such, I think they're out of touch with reality. But I think the important thing to know is this party has been through very difficult times before. Its predecessors have had leaders come and go, but the values and principles of the party have sustained it during those periods. In 1986, Van Zyl Slabbert walked off the job, left Parliament and left politics. And the party had to pick itself up and carry on because there is a bigger project, and that's building an alternative in South Africa. Of course, the last 48 hours have been a major setback, but I don't think these are fatal, and I think that the party needs to do some introspection and rebuilding, and the process of the Federal Council over the weekend, which assessed the report and made some resolutions as a regard of that, is the beginning of that process. I think it is unfortunate that Mr. Maimane has resigned. The federal executive yesterday did its very best to ask him to at least remain on until a Congress. However, it's his personal choice to go and go now, and we have to respect that. Obviously, the party's just got to keep focused on what its job is, which is here in Parliament, holding the ANC and the government accountable, and let the constitutional processes unfold over the coming weeks and months. I want to pay tribute to Mr. Maimane and thank him for his leadership here in Parliament, and thank you for appointing me as the Chief Whip, because it has been my greatest honour of my life to serve both him and this caucus here in Parliament. I'm very proud of the caucus that I've been part of, and I absolutely believe that the work that we do here is the bedrock of building the alternative in South Africa. And we're going to continue doing that. It doesn't matter whether I'm sitting in the Chief Whip's bench or whether I'm sitting on the back bench. I believe that we have to build a strong alternative in South Africa, that there needs to be a strong opposition to the ANC here in Parliament, and we will continue to do that. And certainly not going to be held back by the recent events. I disagree with Mr. Maimane that the DA is not the vehicle for change. I believe it is the only viable vehicle for change in South Africa. The events of the last 48 hours aside, we remain the second largest party in South Africa, we remain the official opposition here in Parliament, and we remain the leading party in government in a number of metropolitan areas. There is a duty of care to the people of South Africa and the millions of people who place their trust in the DA, that we continue to build and grow, and that we continue to get up every morning and fight for them and ensure that their voices are heard and ensure that this government is held accountable. I certainly won't be resigning as a DA MP. I remain committed to the project of building an alternative in South Africa.
Steenhuisen, I suppose he's one to watch now in terms of his future fortunes inside the Democratic Alliance. But we take the conversation back to Mike Siluma, who has been sitting with us here in studio about this breaking story, and to something unrelated but linked. That crossing that we went to, the AfriForum, talking about the cases that it now wants to take to the courts, saying that they're compelling the NPA to do their job. It's tempting to think that the AfriForum is taking advantage in terms of their timing or of this time to say we're here too, we're a voice. But you're also saying there's that other real frustration from South Africans about the seeming non-reaction of the NPA to the things that are coming out of state capture.
Yes, I think that there's a very deep level of exasperation, in South Africa about the lack of movement, because remember, the whole platform on which Cyril Ramaphosa came into power, and why most people actually would have considered voting for him, once Jacob Zuma was out of the picture, it was because he was talking about dealing with corruption. and bringing people to book, getting people to account. And the key vehicle of getting people to account, people who were engaged in malfeasance and criminality, is the NPA. The NPA has to prosecute people. That's the only way you can bring people to, And I think that the frustration is that Shamela Batoyi has been there for almost a year now, and she's got nothing to show. The president himself must be, very frustrated, because for all his talk about dealing with corruption, etc., because it's a critical thing about how our country is viewed. I mean, the other day it took the Americans to deal with the Guptas, when actually we've been having the head of public prosecutions here for a year, and nothing had happened. We've got an assets forfeitures unit which has not done anything about that. So I think that it is actually a bad reflection on us that we have done nothing, literally, beyond setting up the commissions. No one has been brought to book.
What's AfriForum's strategy in bringing up these cases that are seemingly, like the Thandi Modise case, seems like a civil matter, and they want to pursue it and highlight it to the South African public?
No, I think that the problem with the AfriForum's positioning is that it is part of that broader revisionist movement, and that's why people are skeptical about their motives, etc. Because the AfriForum is linked to the Freedom Front Plus, is linked to some of the people in the DA who tend to follow Helen Zille and them. So they are part of that broader pushback. So often when they raise issues, people look at their actions through that lens. But I don't think that it takes away from the fact that we are having a very big problem with our National Prosecuting Authority.
Would you say all it will take is one big prosecution in terms of a case to set South Africans' minds at ease?
Given the number of cases that are coming out playing, I would say maybe we would need a couple of top ones. And I think it's a device that has been used in many different jurisdictions, that when you've got pervasive criminality happening like that, and wrongdoing and corruption happening like that, you're never probably going to have enough resources to pursue each and every one in every municipality, in every village, and going all the way up to the former president's office. You're never going to have the time or the resources, to do that properly. So what many people would have expected was that there would be a prioritization of these cases, apart from anything else, to send a message, that people must know that if they do wrong, that there will be consequences, irrespective of where you are sitting in the corruption food chain.
Let's go back to that conversation about the Democratic Alliance. We might be talking about a party, events in a party here, but how do they impact the national political landscape?
I think that one of the things that we need to ask ourselves, Desiree, is 25 years later, we still have a black party and a white party, and we're quite happy. And we have got leaders who see racial groups as their political capital, to say black people are our people, and you've got a party like the DA or Freedom Front Plus, which says white people are our people. I think that kind of positioning by political leaders in South Africa is actually against the national interest. It is against what our constitution enjoins us to do, to build one nation where we all pulling together, where everyone is treated equally, everyone has got a place in the sun. I think that these are divisive politics that we have, that you've got parties, party leaders in particular, I would say. I think that we need to call on party leaders to give the people of South Africa a different paradigm of political engagement, so that the next generation of South Africans will be voting more on principle rather than voting based on race.
So, talking about that and looking at the DA in terms of their leadership, does it matter if a white person leads the DA or a black person leads the DA?
I think that on Monday we had that long conversation with Desiree to say there are two DAs. So if you are in the DA and you are sitting with Helen Zille and the members of the review panel and such like, right?
Your Tony Leons.
Your Tony Leons. It actually matters that it must be a white person, or you are the guy from the IRR. It matters that it must be a white person, so that you can impress the white voters who have gravitated towards the Freedom Front Plus. But if you are sitting in the opposite corner, and you're wanting to make the DA a more representative and more diverse party, you probably would be arguing that actually the replacement of Mmusi Maimane with a white person is a reversal. It's turning back the clock, and that it is actually damaging the image of the DA in the eyes of the majority of voters in this country who are black. So it really depends where you're sitting in there.
One of the things you said in your article about the ilk of Mmusi Maimane, Phumzile van Dam, they came in starry-eyed hoping that they could make an impact, and they were soon to find out that that wasn't to be the case. What happens to the black person who's left in the DA now, who is approached to say, we want you to come into a leadership position? Where does this new breed stand?
I think that the DA leadership is going to battle to find, because what you need actually in the DA is not a black person who is a poodle of somebody who is going to be a puppet of yours. That will become very clear very soon, very quickly. What you need in the DA, because it is really assuming that they are wanting to stand up for the cause of liberalism, broadly speaking. You need to have a very strong black person in the DA to be able to articulate, almost to fashion a slightly a reconfigured approach to liberalism, which is more inclusive rather than a white liberalism or black liberalism.
Trollop said yesterday that they have made mistakes. The DA has made mistakes. They've taken voters for granted. Solimalatsi says the DA has learned lessons. But have they learned enough of the lessons that they were supposed to learn in time for the next poll?
My question is, when did they learn the lesson? Because Helen Zille has just been elevated now on the weekend, and the party almost imploded. So I'm not sure whether any lessons have been learned. I'm not even sure whether there is a willingness to learn any lessons. Given, I mentioned earlier on the view of Douglas Gibson, who is one of the senior people in the in the DA, who said that white people are sick and tired of this harping on racism. So if that is the sentiment of people like that, and the sentiment of the voters who have gravitated towards the Freedom Front Plus, I don't think that there is a willingness or ability to learn the lesson.
You're talking about the requirement of strong black people. There was a lot of excitement within the DA circles when people like Serge Motau came into leadership and they were sent to Parliament. Have they been a disappointment? And in terms of looking at the future, are there any black leaders that you think could take the mettle? Bongani Baloyi is being touted about. Which other DA leaders do you think can step in and get the party to move forward?
Well, I would say, someone like the knack that the DA has is to terminate strong black leaders that have emerged within their ranks, whether it's Lindo Mazibuko or the head of policy, Gwen Ngwenya, now Mmusi Maimane, for all his weaknesses, one can criticize him, but I do think that he represented a different and new kind of DA leader, that had emerged.
Yeah.
So I think that you would be looking at people like Phumzile van Dam, for example. I'm not sure how long they're going to be staying in the party, particularly the younger people. I'm not sure if Makashile Ganas, etc. I don't know if they will be willing to stay in the party.
Well, he has said he's going nowhere.
And be treated and be treated with disdain, by people like Helen Zille.
Mike, thank you so much for spending the morning with us.
No problem. You're welcome.
All right, we've fast run out of time, but thank you to our various guests today to bring some insight and some perspective into our breaking news story, Mmusi Maimane resigning from the DA as well as Parliament.
That's been your agenda this